Hi everyone, this is Sam Create the Hearts, and I'm back with another 12 days of Christmas. So today, actually, a lot of my cards are going to be focusing on flat cards for mailing. So cards without a lot of dimension. So today I'm going to be using a stencil. This one's called Vintage Santa, and it's from The Ton. And I got this last year, and I don't see The Ton stamps on YouTube very much. They have some beautiful stencils, absolutely gorgeous stencils, layering stencils, a lot of florals, but they also have some really cool bells and, in this case, a Santa. So I'm going to be using a Santa. So when it cuts down, you can cut it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to show it on a card at the end. But I usually don't put it on a card right away a lot of times because I like the inks to kind of dry. But I would start with a larger panel. So the panel I'm working with is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and that just gives you more space. And so I'm trying to adjust my camera so that you guys can see, because I am using a larger panel. You can see my coffee there, which I'm going to sip on while I do this. So I'm going to tape down my panel, and I'm just using some washi tape, which this washi tape is super sticky and does kind of rip my paper, so be careful of that. None of it was a problem with this one. I think there are, I want to say 6 stencils, and there is a little sheet that kind of gives you a cheat sheet of what colors they suggest. But on the stencil itself, it does tell you light red, dark red, gray, lightest skin tone. It tells you on the stencil itself. So I'm actually using Distress Oxides with this today. So I've got Festive Berries is my lightest red. So you do a light red, and so I'm doing a light red and just kind of stenciling it, and I'm not worried too much because once it dries, it'll dry in a much smoother look. And I'm looking at the one I just did, the one I'm doing right now, and it has dried already beautifully. So you go ahead and do a bit of this festive. Now there is a spot in the middle for the eyes. They recommend doing that at the end, and I think because this stencil, I think it's speeding up a little, it's black, and you don't want to smear black everywhere, so that's kind of why. But I am wiping this one down slightly because I know I'm going to come back with this stencil again, and I don't want to smear red. So I'm lifting this up, and I'm going to move on to stencil number 2. The first couple stencils are pretty easy. It's when we get to the face, I find that I've not quite mastered the face as well as I'd like, but it's not too bad. Everything kind of works itself out. And so now we're on to a darker red. I'm using a Lumberjack Plaid, and this just gives sort of that shadow and the contrast. Really makes Santa pop. I'm going to go ahead and do this one really quickly. So this is Lumberjack Plaid, and I will say that this stencil set's pretty magical, because once you lift everything and see the reveal, it's pretty amazing. So this is one that will come at the end as well. It's got the blue part of Santa's eyes. So now we're on to 3. And this one, I kind of did cheat sheet, make sure that, even though it says on the stencil, this is supposed to be a light gray. And so this is going to be the kind of the shadow and everything of his beard and his hat, because most of that stays white. So it really just develops that part of the Santa really well. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm using this color called Oat Milk, a new color from Tailored Expressions. And I actually think it's the perfect gray for this. It's not super light, but I think it's dark enough to kind of give that shadow. see it all come together. And this is the part where I struggle where to put the face. So the face is in 2 parts, the skin tone. And I have not found the perfect like colors. And you could make this a much darker Santa. You could do any kind of Santas that suit you. But I didn't really quite find the colors I liked. But anyway, I am using the color, I believe it's buttercream frosting, and it doesn't look bad, so you know, it's fine. And I will say that I think I did much better on his face this time than I did the first time, so I think that this one just takes practice. And so like I said, there are 2 different ones for the face. So I'm doing the buttercream frosting for the first layer, and then there's another layer that you put over it. And so I actually had to get up and get another brush, because this one is a pigment ink. I don't really want to mix my brushes. I do have brushes for oxides, and I have brushes for any sort of pigment inks. So like Concord and Ninth is one that I have its own brushes. Distress Oxide, I have their own brushes. And then all of my sort of dye inks, I just use the same brushes for those. So like my Pink Fresh, my Tailored Expressions, I use the same inks. So now we're on to the second one for the face. And so I'm just kind of trying to figure out exactly where it goes, but I'm going to be using which one is that one? It's Tattered Rose is what I'm going to be using. And this is a lovely color for this. It's a pink, but it's kind of a fleshy pink, I guess. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do all those parts. It's his ears, the forehead, his eyebrows, mouth, and then this piece right here, this is technically it's the last one. And so this one does a background, and that, which will finish off your hat. It'll finish off the hat, the face, it'll finish everything off by doing this background. And then it also does a little bit more highlighting on the face, which I just did in that Tattered Rose right over it again. So just kind of making sure I have it in the right sort of spot. And because that top part of that stencil is so skinny, it like just bends really easily. So I ended up getting another piece of washi and kind of putting it down there, because I didn't want to rip my stencil, but also like I wanted it to be more supportive so that I could get in there and get my ink in there. And so there's that. And so it's a little spraying on there, but I actually ended up going back later when I was all done, and I did some white watercolor on that to get like snow, so which is fine. So now we're back to stencil 1 and 2, and this is for the eyes. So we have the first stencil, which is supposed to be in black, and it just basically highlights the eyes. It doesn't actually make them black, but gives this like highlight, I guess, maybe, I don't know, but it looks really good, so it works. And then I go in with some broken china for the eyes. Just kind of make some pop. And then my Santa is done, almost. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp. It's the most wonderful time of the year. I'm going to tell you that this stamp set, it goes so beautifully with this vintage Santa. Or probably with any of the vintage stuff. It's going to just, the font is really great. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair. And I'm going to stamp that right there at the bottom. And then this is ready to go. I'm just going to let it dry, and I'm going to show you a sample of it on a card, which is just basically cutting it out and then placing it on a card. So flat, and beautiful. And I forget you sent them inside. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. This is Sandy Playing with the Heart.